A great way to have a great interview is to start fast with the interview questions, to really have some good initial answers to these questions and really shine, and then you're off and rolling, and then you're more confident throughout the interview, and then the interviewer gets excited about you too because they're like, wow, they answer these questions real well. I wonder how they're going to do with these other questions. They seem very intriguing as a candidate. And then you're off and rolling and things are great. So start fast by nailing these 3 questions. There's these 3 questions that are asked pretty much all the time in interviews, and they're usually asked as one of the first, if not the first question. And there's these 3 questions, and we'll go into these in a second here. If you're interested in learning more about different types of questions and all the gamut of answers, do some research around that, a lot of books, different things out there. Take a look at the Job Interview Mastery course that I have with the 50 questions. I actually do demonstrations of 50 different questions, and these 3 are included in that. So if you're interested in that, take a look at that. But to get started with building your confidence and nailing these 3 questions, nail these 3. And the 3 are, and you probably might guess them. Let's take a moment here. Think about it to yourself. I wonder what the 3 questions are. What maybe something I've heard before, or maybe I could guess. So in your mind, think, are you guessing? Well, let's see how well I did. This is what I see over and over, and even what I use myself. First question is, tell me about yourself. What is your greatest strength? And what is your greatest weakness? Those are the 3 that are asked over and over. Now, there's lots of other questions asked later in the interview process. They might ask different questions, but I tell you, see these ones all the time. Especially that the very first kind of almost ice-breaking questions, tell me about yourself. Or they might say, describe to me your job history, or go over your resume or CV and, tell me about your job history. It's a way to kind of get you to kind of talk a little bit, to share some things, and to, help the interviewer to understand a little bit more about you. Remember, all they've done is maybe read your application or resume or CV. They've only read that. They can imagine some things. And they're maybe doing lots of interviews in a day, and they're trying to remember a person. So, by you being able to speak to that helps them to get kind of going. So that tell me about yourself question is usually always the first question. So if you know it's the first question, it's like an open book test, right? Why not prepare your answer ahead of time and have it ready and really nail that question? So telling me about yourself is not about I was born in 19 whatever, and then I went to this grade school, and then I went to this college. No, it's not your life history. It's not about your hobbies or anything like that. It's about your professional life. Once again, everything is oriented around how can you help them? How can you help them by filling this particular position that you're applying for? So tell me about yourself. Just going through your job history with little nuggets thrown in there about how you were able to be real successful. Maybe you're interviewing, I'll make up a title. Maybe you're interviewing for a project manager position, and you're saying, yes, I was a project manager 8 years ago with this company. This is my first time in project management, and I learned this and this, and here's how I helped the company. And that's it, literally less than 30 seconds on that. And then you do the next one and maybe another one. So you're 2 or 3 things that you're really highlighting, or organizations you're highlighting, and then you're sharing maybe a little nugget to help set up the interview about things from that history. So it's not like, tell me about yourself. Well, I worked here 8 years ago, then I worked here 5 years ago, and now I got laid off, so I'm looking for a new job. That's not it. It's a little bit more than that, and really kind of telling about yourself in a professional manner, and then how you link and help their organization. So prepare that ahead of time and practice that a lot, because you'll get asked that question almost every time. Maybe not every time, but a lot, and it'll be asked maybe in different ways. So be prepared. It might be the same question, tell me about yourself, but asked in a different way, and be ready, because it's probably going to come first. Now, close on its heels is these other 2. What is your greatest strength, and what is your greatest weakness? I think sometimes people ask the strength question because they're being polite. They should want to know about your strengths. That's what I really key in on when I'm interviewing. I want to know about people's strengths. I'm a real strength-oriented person and focused on that. But really, they want to get to that gotcha, tell me about your weakness. Tell me, why we shouldn't hire you, because that's what I really want to know. So a lot of times these 2 questions are paired together. They might even phrase it in the same sentence. Tell me about your greatest strength and tell me about your greatest weakness, or tell me about one of them, or they might phrase it like, well, if I was to talk to your manager, what would they say was your greatest strength or your greatest weakness? It's the same question, just phrased differently. Same deal, open book test, right? So really nail these questions. The strength questions, easy if you're prepared. You want to prepare the things about your strengths, maybe brainstorm them out, so because you're going to work these strengths into lots of interview questions all throughout the whole interview time, not just the strength question. You want to work it in lots of areas. Maybe they ask you about, tell me about a time when you led a team. Well, that's a strength question. Here's how I led a team, here's how I was successful, and here's how I used a strength of mine of, working with diverse organizations or diverse groups of people. See, you're pulling in that strength into that answer. So you've already got some ready-made strength questions. So hit them with a good strength question or a strength answer that really fits in their organization, fits in the job they're looking for to get them excited off the bat. Like my greatest strength is X, and the interviewer's like, wow, the person we need has to be great at X. There's perfect. There's a good match. So just be prepared for it, because I see so many times when people flub it, they're like, oh, I don't know, I've got lots of strengths. I'm good at this, I'm good at that. And that's it. They don't tell a story or paint the picture. So really emphasize that with the strength question. Followed on its heels a lot of times is the weakness question. I guess the interviewers are looking for you to fall on your sword, so to speak, and just, my greatest weakness is I never show up to work on time. Well, okay, great, we won't hire you. That's maybe what they're looking for. I don't even like answering the weakness question. I come around in a different way and get to some of those things of areas of improvement for folks that see if maybe my organization can help them improve. But many interviewers are looking for you to kind of, fall on your sword, kind of say, this is my greatest weakness, so it can be kind of a knockout thing. With the greatest weakness one, don't give them that. Don't give them the knockout thing. Don't give them a reason early in the interview especially to knock you out and say like, oh, this person doesn't fit. Like, oh, I'm hiring for somebody to, do 3D modeling in a Unity game development program. And you say, my greatest weakness is I'm not good at Unity. Well, you probably shouldn't be interviewing in the first place for this position, but you're already done at that point as far as the interview. So weakness questions, think about a couple tips on that. The other course goes in great detail, but this will help you. The greatest tip on the weakness question is to think about maybe something you're not as strong with, be honest, but it's something that's a lesser strength, not an all-consuming weakness. Remember, all weaknesses can be considered lesser strengths. And think about something that's not super critical to the position. Maybe it's something that's important, but it's not super critical to the position. So, like for me, one of my greatest weaknesses is, I don't like doing expense reports. And so sometimes I fall behind on them, and that was a weakness for me, especially early in my career. This is how I might answer that. Early in my career, I just wasn't good with expense reports, but then I started to realize how important it is to our finance department, how important it is to budgeting and to forecasting, and plus I get paid with my expense reports too. Like, how dumb am I, right? So I made a process in place that every Friday at the same time, I always did my expense report, and by putting that process in place, it really helped me to mitigate that weakness of my not getting my expense reports in time. All the other reports, everything else I do, I'm great at. I love making reports, love communicating, really good at everything else. It's just the expense reports I wasn't that good at, but the process helped me to be better at. Okay, so there's a little long-winded way, but really what I said was, I have this thing, expense reports, right? Not make or break, unless they think like, oh, he's not good at reports. That's why I threw in the part where I love doing reports, I'm good at reports, just wasn't the expense report when I probably would expand that a little bit further. And then I talked about the process I put in place to mitigate that or reduce that. So you don't want to blurt out your weakness and say, I still have this weakness and I don't care, it's just who I am. You want to think about, how am I overcoming that weakness? And I like really thinking about, here's a process I put in place, a methodology to help mitigate that weakness. So that expense report weakness is kind of mitigated and gone away. Let's focus on those strengths. Let's focus on my job history, my knowledge, skills, and abilities, and how I can help you. So these 3 questions, be great at these. You'll start off fast. One last thing also about the tell me about yourself. Gosh, I asked that question, and I can't believe how many times people just stumble over that. It's like the easiest question in the world, I think, if you're even somewhat prepared, and they stumble all the time. That's good for you, because you watch this course and you know you're going to be prepared and really great at that question, so you'll be off and running. So prepare for lots of questions. The more prepared you are with questions and doing your research around questions and practicing questions, the more confident you're going to feel anyway. So do that. But at minimum, do these 3 and you'll start fast. And then when you start fast, you're going to have a great interview.